to Philly Tech Connect podcast, where Philly's tech minds meet. CEOs, developers, dreamers. This is your space. Each week, we explore the journeys of tech innovators. Join us and be inspired.
Hey everyone, Dave here with another episode of the Philly Tech Connect podcast. Today I'm speaking with Justin Titchenell. Justin founded CoachTools in 2021 with a vision to empower athletic programs while helping coaches and players build authentic relationships. Prior to CoachTools, Justin attended Gettysburg College where he studied business and management, was an accomplished student athlete, and an entrepreneurial fellow. Justin, how are you doing?
Doing well, Dave. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course, my pleasure. I'm excited to hear about CoachTools and what you guys have been working on the last couple of years. Tell us, you're a student athlete, so I imagine that this, connects to the story. Tell me and the audience a little bit about how you got started with CoachTools.
Absolutely. So going back a few years during my senior year at Gettysburg College, that was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So, well, actually, my junior year was. So going into my senior year of football, we actually ended up not having a season. So during that time, I just had a lot of time on my hands to reflect on my playing days, understand what was working, what wasn't working, and I was also at that time trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do prior to graduating. So it was all kind of like a perfect storm between timing, ideas, and my personal experience as a player to come up with the idea. So what I originally did was really just ask my fellow coaches, coaches within the Centennial Conference, like coaches at Dickinson College, Franklin and Marshall, of course, Gettysburg, and so forth. And what I came to understand was that the way that coaches were giving us as players feedback was a little bit there was a disconnect between what coaches were telling us on the field and what they were giving us in the written feedback. Because for those of you who aren't really familiar with how it works between communication and a coach and a player, what they typically do after a game or a practice is, especially at the college level, they'll say, "Hey, player X, Y, or Justin or Dave, on this specific play, you did this correct, but you also maybe you messed up on your technique or you didn't take the correct step on this specific play." So that it really didn't teach the players how they were playing within the true context of the game. So Coach Tools was built to bridge that gap to essentially help coaches communicate to their players more effectively and help the players understand how the coach's feedback can improve their own game. So that's really the backstory and how it got started.
Super cool. Yeah, I'm interested to learn more about kind of the nuts and bolts of it. So, when I think of software, software needs data in order to produce analytics and recommendations and things like this. Football, sports are obviously played, not in the digital world. So, can you tell me a little bit about how the data like enters the software and how the coach and the player end up with this understanding of ways to optimize their play?
Definitely. So to make a connection between a more well-known company and what we're doing, so think of Coach Tools for those of you who are familiar with football, pro football. It's like Pro Football Focus, and essentially that's a platform that grades all NFL players, college like FBS college players on their different categories in football. So essentially, yeah, so that's pretty much how the coaches think about. So it's more so the coaches are inputting the grades. Similar, it's a little bit different than Pro Football Focus, but the coaches are putting in the grades themselves, which makes us a little bit unique. And so that's how it makes Coach Tools a powerful tools because it's all coach generated content instead of being a third party. So they can really slice and dice the data to understand not only how are the players performing in given scenarios, but more so what plays are performing best given specific types of plays that they might be facing as an offense or a defense. So really, I would say in general, as a macro trend, as coaches are using data, definitely use it with a grain of salt. It's more so my recommendation would be to use it in addition to your own intuition. And I'm sure most coaches are doing that, but it's definitely a tool that can help you just get one step further, if that makes sense.
For sure. And, to be able to get data on those plays, is there somebody whose job it is to just kind of stand on the sidelines with a clipboard and just kind of say, on 3rd and 7, we ran like a run up the middle, we got 3 yards, like this is who held the ball. Like, is it really kind of like a line by line like that? And then that you kind of import this or copy it into the software?
Yeah, so it's a case by case basis depending on the school. So most high schools are using a platform called Huddle for their film. Um, And there's another feature within Huddle that's called Huddle Assist, where essentially somebody within that community, within that company, puts down the play information, at least the basic play information, so that the coaches don't have to input every single item of that play. Because as I'm sure you can imagine, there's a lot of different variables that go into place. So to answer your question, it's a little bit of both where there sometimes are players that are on the field keeping track of the down and distance, the play number, and so forth. But there's also that supplement that comes from other companies like Huddle. And just to relate it to my own story, actually, when I was a sophomore at Gettysburg, especially, um, and not to get too deep into before Gettysburg, but when I was actually the day I graduated from high school, I played in a all-star game. It was called the Valor Bowl, and I ended up tearing my ACL, MCL, PCL. So, long story short, I missed, and there was a misdiagnosis which ended up putting me out for both my freshman and sophomore seasons. But luckily, I came back my junior year. So when I was out during that injury, I would also be putting a lot of that play data, like you were saying, on that clipboard. So that maybe is like the first way that I got involved in like the football coaching realm.
It's yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I don't even know if there's any other CLs that exist in the human body, but it is interesting to see kind of in these ways that you've sort of turned the negatives into the positives, like obviously having this injury and then turning that into, hey, I want to still be part of the sport. I want to learn more about the statistics and maybe like the management side of things. And then it sounds like you come back junior year and then senior year you've got COVID, so then the season is maybe canceled or something. So it feels like a career that got really cut short. But you've now turned this into a startup, which is really neat. Obviously, we've talked a lot about football. That's like your background, and my understanding of where the tool is kind of focused on. Is there a capability or an interest in making this part of other sports that function similarly, like I don't know, like a hockey or a basketball or something like that, other team sports?
Yeah, football is just the sport that I know best, and based on my own experience as a player, and also when I graduated college, I got some more not so high level middle school coaching experience. So that's what I know best. And eventually, I would say there are sports that it's a niche thing where it's based on if there's plays in a sport. So I mean, there's other sports like basketball, lacrosse, rugby, even that this could go into. But as we're really just beginning right now, and we still are in the very early stages of the startup, we're primarily going to be in football.
Makes sense. It's just, yeah, it's very interesting space. The coaches, I imagine, also are, there's so much pressure and talk about being data driven now in sports. It feels like there's like this old guard versus new guard in terms of like the people that, they lead by intuition and experience, and others maybe a little bit more analytics. And you'll see this. I was just sort of watching. I might have been watching the Eagles the other night, like versus the Rams, and some decision came up, and they kind of said like this is like a toss up, like they kind of ran the probabilities. You're just seeing more data injected into sports. How are you finding, it just trying to kind of promote and sell this analytics tool in this environment? Do you find like coaches receptive to it or not so much?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So coaches that have been doing this for a very long time are not quite as receptive. And for good reason. I totally understand it. If they've been doing something that's been working for 15, 20, 25 years, then why fix it? But at the same time, there's a new wave of coaches in their late 20s, 30s, even 40s, guys that are a part of this new generation who are a lot more receptive to taking these analytics as a part of the whole picture and trying to incorporate it into their decision making. So yeah, it really depends on the coach, the school, a lot of different factors, but yeah, I'm really excited about the future of it, and I think for sure it's only going to get it's only going to grow as the years progress.
Yeah, it does. It feels like you're on the right side of the trend, right? I can't think of an industry where somebody kind of said like analytics is a way of the past, right? Like oh, we don't we don't want to go down that analytics road. And so I do feel while I think the way you kind of describe it is like a piece of the puzzle. It's like a way to get an edge, in a very competitive environment. Like I don't know if you could necessarily run or if you should like run all of your decision making off of it, but it's a way to kind of get an edge over other individuals. For those who want to learn more about CoachTools, tell us a little bit about what's next, what you guys are focused on, and how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. So for this football season is wrapping up right now. We're recording in late November, so we're excited about what's coming up next in especially once really the holidays are over because that's when people turn the page on last season and start to think about next year. So one of the things that we're doing is we're going to the AFCA Coaches Conference, which is down in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's right on the horizon, and then ways that people can stay in touch. Our website is coachtoolsllc.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, or X. We have our own podcast as well on Spotify and YouTube. So yeah, that's just Coach Tools, Coach Tools LLC. And yeah, Dave, I really appreciate it, and best of luck to you as well.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
That's all for today's episode of Philly Tech Connect. Join our community at phillytechentrepreneurs.com. Special thanks to our sponsor, shortlist.io, a digital marketing agency specializing in top-notch link building, content strategy, and web design. Stay innovative, Philly, and see you next time on Philly Tech Connect.